How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good, thank you.
That was really
Sorry,
a collective
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can you guys start by telling us a little bit about your characters?
Whose turn is it? Is it me to go first? Okay.
Go first.
Okay, I play Eleanor Guthrie, who is a very determined and intelligent young woman who, her role on the island is a fence. So she takes in pirate goods and she sells them back to merchant ships, and for that reason she becomes the most kind of politically and economically powerful figure on the island. She's, an incredible pleasure to play because I think it's kind of shedding light on an area of history that has been neglected. And yeah, she's determined and pretty kick-ass.
And I play Captain Flint, who is the captain of the Walrus. He has been the most successful pirate on the island. He has this fearsome reputation. But as we meet him in the first episode, his supremacy is on the wane. He's had a fallow period for some months, and his crew is becoming discontent, and they want to vote him off, and they want to vote on another captain. So he's on the back foot, and he's desperate to survive. But he's got a bigger ambition. He's going after this treasure galleon. His crew don't know this, but he's going after this Spanish bullion ship, which has millions of Spanish dollars on it, which would allow the island of Nassau to be independent. It would afford us the ability to buy guns and stand on our own 2 feet and actually be able to fight off the British, who were beginning to loom on the horizon. Piracy was working in their favour at one point, as long as we were, beating up Spanish trade lines and things like that, who were our enemy. Now that it's beginning to impinge on British trade to the Americas, it's not working in their favour. So they're going to stomp on piracy. So they're sort of looming over the horizon, and we are trying to set up an island that can stand up against any invasion. So it's that's the setup.
So your characters are working together quite a bit.
Yes, yeah. There's kind of a mutual necessity that they cooperate, because, my character kind of plays a very practical role of providing provisions for the crews when they're off hunting prizes, and so without kind of the support of a trader on land, these people can't do their job. So, and Eleanor is very interesting because she has the front of legitimacy, which is provided by her father, who's an aristocratic. He's a tradesman and a front for the whole illegitimate business. But she is constantly rebelling against this father figure who basically has done none of the nitty gritty, and she's built this up from grassroots. So, as legitimacy of their trade starts to wane, there is a political legitimacy as both kind of Flint and Eleanor want to create a state that can stand on its own 2 feet. I think that's what's really interesting about the whole context, is that these are people who've been abandoned by their state and want to be free. And I think that's something that's really going to appeal to contemporary audiences as much as at the time that it was a kind of essential aspect of survival.
And a sense that also Nassau, the world that we exist in, is also a very temporary. It's just beginning. It's very delicate. It's trying to stand on its own 2 feet. Events are constantly shifting, which mean that everybody on the island, all these pirates, are constantly just trying to survive in this very, very, this world that keeps on shifting. And the allegiances are very delicate. And as that one breaks off, you have to find another one that's going to allow you to survive in this world. So it feels very real in that sense. It's very political and it's very real. So and gives it a texture which seems much more nuanced and complex than the usual kind of pirate films, that seem to exist in a fantastical world in isolation, where none of these things really have any play. But in reality, it must have been like this.
Toby, you've got a long history of working in British television. Loved you in Vet, by the way.
Thank you.
now you're coming into this show, which is produced by Michael Bay, and it's an American production, and it's shooting in Cape Town. What's the differences been like between BBC type stuff and this show?
Well, I mean, it's vast. I mean, to be honest with you. I mean, for me, it's a great break, and it's a great pleasure to be out of the parochial kind of TV that we do. I mean, without patronising it just is so much bigger, and it's so much more visionary in where it's taking you. Wants to take audiences, what it can do as well. I mean, we just don't have the budgets, but this has the budgets to create this whole world. It's we filmed this thing on a backlot, and yet when you watch it, it looks like you're really genuinely in the Bahamas and on the sea. And that takes sort of incredible dexterity and the vis effects people, but the way it's shot, everything is like a movie. The standards are so high, the writing standards are so high, and a lot of it's a different world from what I'm used to. But it's a real pleasure and an honor for me to be part of that, because it just doesn't happen.
Looking at the trailer, this is obviously a very physical show for your character too. She's not just sitting behind a desk checking in stolen goods.
No.
Can you talk a little bit about the preparation for the very physicalness that this show entails?
I mean, there was a very intense training period. So I didn't actually go to boot camp. The guys had pirate boot camp, which sounded horrific, but to be honest. But I did do quite a lot of training and stunts training. Unfortunately, I only get one fight scene in this season, so I'm kind of vying for season 2 to get a bit more kick-ass and brutal. But you guys really were to be put through your paces, and I think you're more apt to talk.
Well, I mean, they wanted to create. It wasn't really the training that we did was not really to achieve some sort of physical aesthetic that was, like, oh, aren't these pirates ripped? It was more about creating physiques that looked like they'd worked on ships, and that we had a hard life, that we weren't eating kind of, it was a very hand to mouth existence. It was hard work, and so to do that we had to kind of we had to work very hard, and then also it set us up. We were just fit enough to work these very, very long days. So it wasn't really about a physical aesthetic. It was more about that we had a sense that we worked on ships, that we pulled ropes, that we had this very kind of hard existence, but also we were fit enough to do very, very long days of battle sequences that you're sitting around for hours while they set it up, then you're having to be on your and you're doing it day in, day out. And so, the physical side of it was, whenever you weren't working, you were in the gym doing stuff, and training, fight training and stuff like that.
Yeah, we shoot an episode in 10 days, so it's kind of, and the fact that it's done to this kind of very filmic level is kind of a testament to the fact that everyone works bloody hard.
Yeah, and you got to be ready. You've got to really know your stuff.
Yeah, because we never really get more than 2 or 3 takes for a lot of things, and so I mean we're lucky enough that we kind of get quite intensive rehearsal periods normally as well. So just to be physically fit for that kind of shooting regime is really, really important, because otherwise you get knackered and injured. Yeah.
The show sounds very intense and very complex. Do you guys have a chance to have fun on the set as well?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You and Mark have quite a good little double act.
I mean, because it is also quite a lot of it is quite, as you say, it's very intense, especially from my storyline and Hannah's storyline. It's all quite, and there's not much light relief. So when we're there's a lot of mucking around in between stuff, because I have to work. I've got to have a laugh. I've got to enjoy what I'm doing. I don't want to be, But when you got to be there, when you've got to really step up and deliver, you've got to really be focused.
Switch it on.
Right. So what's great about working with all these guys is they get that. You know, it's you can have fun, but when you need to be on, you've got to be on.
Yeah.
You got to know what you're saying. You know, we mess around, but up to a point.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of like makeup room in the morning is generally the time when most people are kind of like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and everyone's kind of absolutely hysterical and like just losing the plot basically.
Yeah.
Especially when there's, you know, a room full of makeup girls and half of the pirates are walking in topless. That's pretty hilarious. Just to see the reactions of which one am I supposed to be touching up today? Oh God. So yeah, it's a great environment to be working in, and we're a really close knit cast, and I think we're really lucky because there's no big kind of egos flying around, and it's just people who kind of really believe in the project and want to get down to business.
Have you ever stayed in character for like any other reasons? Just like walking around town, being down?
Oh yeah, definitely. I like to tell a few people where to stick it sometimes. Yeah, it's definitely brought out the more vitriolic side of me. But yeah.
Anything, any exciting teasers for season 1 that you can give us for people who are looking forward to the show?
All I can say, I mean, what I can say genuinely, I've seen 7 of the 8 episodes now, and I genuinely will say it just gets better and better and better and better and better as you go on. And like really satisfying series where you start out and it's, you know, you go, oh, this is fun, I'll tune in next week, and then it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and it takes an audience to places that they're just not expecting to go with a pirate show. Right. It has a real sense of texture and authenticity, and what you're really interested in is not, you know, the battle sequences and everything like that have their place in it, but what you're really interested in are the characters and where they're going and how they're going to develop and their stories.
Yeah, it's a political drama. You know, it's when you think about like crime drama, there is really no other context that can be as kind of global and significant as piracy. I mean, it's the kind of seed of capitalism as we know it today. So it's a time where all these things are starting to germinate, and I think one of the amazing things is characters will kind of jump out at the audience, and people will be like, yeah, I understand why they feel like that, because I want to achieve that in my life too. I want to have that kind of autonomy and freedom, and I think that's really appealing, and I hope that, you know, audiences are going to engage with it in that way.
Thank you
guys.
Thank you.